The first explosion ripped through Outpost Artemis, like a supernova of twisted metal and flash-frozen atmosphere. Captain Jack Thompson felt the station shudder beneath his feet, a living thing experiencing its final violent death throes. Proximity alarms screamed their electronic warnings, a cacophony of digital desperation that did nothing to change the inevitable. Outside the reinforced viewports, the alien invasion unfolded with terrifying precision. Kraxan warships emerged from quantum-fold spaces, their obsidian hulls gleaming with an almost organic darkness. They moved with a mathematical perfection that spoke of centuries of refined warfare. Each vessel a predator, each movement calculated to maximum destructive effect. Thompson's command center had been designed to withstand nuclear impacts, to serve as the last bastion of human resistance. Now it felt like nothing more than a glass bubble about to be crushed by an indifferent cosmic hand. He watched as defensive platforms, the pride of human engineering, disintegrated under concentrated plasma bombardment. Defensive grid failing. Lieutenant Sarah Morgan called out, her voice tight with controlled panic. Her fingers danced across holographic interfaces, rerouting power, attempting emergency protocols that grew more futile with each passing second. We've lost outer defense rings 3 through 7. Containment zones are compromised. The colony had been humanity's furthest reach into the Proxima Centauri system. 15,000 colonists, scientists, engineers, families who had dreamed of a new frontier, now faced total annihilation. Automated defense systems fought back with everything they had. Rail guns launching hypervelocity rounds that briefly illuminated the darkness of space with streaks of technological defiance. But the Kraxan were prepared for everything. Each human defensive measure was met with an immediate surgical counter. Swarm missiles that should have overwhelmed alien point defense systems were instead scattered by precision energy fields. Electromagnetic pulse weapons designed to disable enemy ships were absorbed and neutralized by adaptive shielding technologies that seemed to predict human tactics before they were even implemented. Evacuation protocols, Thompson barked, knowing full well how limited their options were. The colony's escape shuttles were being systematically targeted, their launch bays turned into expanding clouds of superheated debris before they could even fully open. Lieutenant Morgan's hands moved with desperate speed. Only 3 emergency pods remained functional. Capacity for maybe 200 survivors, maximum. Her voice broke slightly. They both knew what that meant for the remaining 14,800 colonists. Thompson's mind raced. 15 years of preparation. Billions of dollars in infrastructure. Countless human lives. All about to become nothing more than a statistical footnote in humanity's expansion into deep space. A massive explosion rocked the command center. Warning lights transformed the room into a hellscape of crimson and electric blue. Support structures groaned, gravity fluctuators failing as the station's structural integrity began to collapse. "Send the message," Thompson ordered, his voice steady despite everything. Lieutenant Morgan nodded. Her fingers struck the quantum communication array, a device designed to punch a signal through almost any interference. The message was simple, brutal, and would echo across human-controlled space. Colony compromised. Severe casualties. Earth, we are falling. The transmission lasted barely 3 seconds before another plasma strike obliterated the communication array. But it was enough. Enough to warn Earth. Enough to light the fuse of humanity's response. As the command center began to decompress, Captain Thompson watched the alien ships continue their methodical destruction. They weren't just attacking, they were dismantling, studying, preparing for something larger. His last thought, before explosive decompression pulled him into the vacuum, was a promise that humanity would not go quietly, that for every life lost here today, there would be a reckoning. The Kraxan might have won this battle, but the war was just beginning. Outside, the colony continued to burn, silent, merciless, a testament to the first, but certainly not the last, clash between humanity and an enemy that believed resistance was impossible. The transmission from Proxima Centauri colony, arrived at 3:47 hours Greenwich Mean Time, cutting through secure military channels like a blade of pure desperation. In underground command centers across the globe, seasoned military leaders watched the footage with a collective intake of breath that seemed to draw all oxygen from the room. Admiral Rebecca Martinez stood perfectly still, her dark eyes reflecting the holographic display of total colony destruction. 15 years of diplomatic protocols, of measured responses, of attempting to negotiate with species that viewed humanity as nothing more than an emerging threat. All of it had culminated in this moment of absolute failure. The war room beneath the United Earth Government headquarters was a cathedral of technological marvel. Holographic displays flickered with real-time data from across human-controlled space. Quantum communication arrays hummed with potential energy. But in that moment, it all felt painfully inadequate. 15,000 lives, whispered General Alexander Rodriguez, his weathered hands clenched into fists. 15,000 souls, erased in less than 3 hours. Martinez knew the political landscape better than anyone. The United Earth Government had spent decades cultivating an image of peaceful exploration. Massive military budgets had been consistently reduced, redirected into scientific research and diplomatic missions. The military-industrial complex that had defined earlier centuries had been systematically dismantled, replaced by a vision of collaborative interstellar cooperation. Those dreams died with the Proxima Centauri colony. "Begin Omega Protocol," Martinez commanded, her voice cutting through the stunned silence. The words sent an electrical charge through the command center. Omega Protocol was more than just a military response. It was a complete restructuring of human society toward a singular purpose. Every major industrial center would be converted. Every research facility would be redirected. Every available resource would be channeled into a single, uncompromising objective: survival. Within hours, the transformation began. In Detroit, automotive factories that had been producing electric vehicles for civilian use were retooled. Robotic assembly lines that once crafted precision transportation now began manufacturing components for next-generation warships. Aerospace engineers who had been designing passenger shuttles were recalled, their expertise now focused on weapons development. Silicon Valley's most advanced technology companies suspended all current projects. Quantum computing teams that had been working on medical research and artificial intelligence redirected their efforts toward military applications. Software developers who had been creating social media platforms now designed tactical communication systems that could operate beyond known physical limitations. Agricultural centers in the American Midwest, Brazilian plains, and Chinese river valleys began rapid conversion. Massive indoor farming complexes were partially converted to produce high-efficiency nutrients for potential military personnel. Research into agricultural technologies now focused on creating sustenance that could be produced quickly, transported easily, and consumed in extreme conditions. Energy production underwent the most dramatic transformation. Solar farms, wind installations, and fusion research facilities were rapidly militarized. The global power grid was reconfigured to support unprecedented energy requirements. Nuclear facilities that had been slowly being phased out were recommissioned, their output now dedicated to potential military needs. Admiral Martinez understood that this was more than a military mobilization. This was a fundamental reimagining of human potential. In Geneva, the United Earth Government Emergency Council convened. For the first time in decades, military leaders were given unprecedented authority. Bureaucratic restraints were systematically dismantled. Every level of human organization would now serve a single purpose. "We are no longer exploring," Martinez told the assembled leaders. "We are preparing for war." Research facilities that had been studying theoretical physics were now tasked with developing breakthrough weapon technologies. Materials science teams began exploring adaptive armor technologies. Quantum entanglement researchers were redirected toward communication systems that could operate beyond known electromagnetic spectrum limitations. The human species, for the first time in its history, moved with a singular, unified purpose. By the end of the first week, the transformation was undeniable. What had once been a loosely connected global civilization was now a precision instrument of potential resistance. Every resource, every human capability, was being systematically organized and weaponized. The Kraxen had destroyed a colony. They had not understood the true nature of humanity. They had not realized that in attempting to exterminate one human settlement, they had awakened something far more dangerous. They had united humanity. Dr. Michael Roberts stood before the holographic display, his fingers tracing intricate quantum algorithms that danced like living mathematics. The research facility, buried 3 kilometers beneath the Atacama Desert, represented humanity's most advanced technological proving ground. Here, the boundaries between science fiction and reality blurred into something extraordinary. Traditional machine learning is obsolete, Roberts muttered to his lead engineer, Dr. Elena Kumar. The display shifted, revealing complex neural networks that seemed to breathe and evolve in real time. What they had created was no longer just artificial intelligence. It was an adaptive cognitive system that could learn, predict, and respond faster than any biological intelligence in the known universe. The core of their breakthrough was a quantum neural hybrid system that could process battlefield information at speeds that defied conventional understanding. Each new warship would be more than a mere machine. It would be a living, thinking weapon capable of rewriting its own tactical algorithms in microseconds. Adaptive hull technologies represented another quantum leap. The materials research team had developed a nano-composite structure that could instantaneously reconfigure at the molecular level. Incoming weapons fire would trigger immediate structural changes, energy dispersion, molecular realignment, even localized matter transmission. What should destroy a ship would instead be absorbed, redirected, or simply made to disappear. "Watch this," Dr. Kumar said, initiating a simulation. The holographic representation showed a warship being struck by multiple energy weapons. Instead of being damaged, the ship's hull seemed to flow like liquid metal, absorbing impacts, changing color and density, transforming the very nature of its existence. Weapon signatures that should have obliterated the vessel instead dissipated harmlessly. But the true marvel was the cognitive system driving these ships. Each vessel would be equipped with a distributed intelligence network that could make tactical decisions faster than any biological command structure. The AI would not just respond to threats, it would predict them, analyze potential outcomes across millions of potential scenarios, and choose the most optimal response before a human could even process the initial threat. Dr. Roberts pulled up schematics of the first prototypes. They called them the Phoenix-class vessels, ships designed to be virtually immortal. Traditional warfare assumed damage and destruction. These ships assumed continuous adaptation and survival. Quantum-entangled communication arrays meant these ships could communicate instantaneously across vast distances, sharing tactical information faster than light itself. No alien communication interdiction would be possible. No strategic surprise would be achievable against a network that could predict and share information at quantum speeds. Weapon systems defied conventional understanding. Hypervelocity railguns that could track and adjust mid-flight. Energy projectors that could shift frequency faster than incoming defensive systems could adapt. Drone swarms that functioned as distributed neural networks, each individual unit capable of independent tactical reasoning, while simultaneously functioning as a collective intelligence. "We're not just building ships," Dr. Roberts explained to the Military Oversight Committee. "We're creating an entirely new paradigm of warfare." The most revolutionary aspect was the ship's ability to learn and evolve. Each engagement would be immediately analyzed, tactical approaches would be refined, and new strategies would be developed in real time. The more the ships fought, the more sophisticated they would become. Psychological warfare was built directly into their cognitive systems. These ships could analyze communication networks, predict enemy responses, and generate counter-strategies that would appear almost supernatural in their precision. Dr. Kumar demonstrated a simulation where a single Phoenix-class vessel confronted multiple alien warships. The human ship didn't just defend. It manipulated the entire battlefield. Communication networks were subtly disrupted. Enemy weapon trajectories were predicted and countered before they were even initiated. The alien vessels found themselves fighting an opponent that seemed to know their intentions before they themselves did. The Kraxan believe in rigid military doctrine. Dr. Roberts told the assembled military leaders, "We're creating a system that views warfare as a fluid, adaptive intelligence. Every moment is a new equation. Every threat is an opportunity for innovation." The first batch of Phoenix-class vessels would be more than weapons. They would be humanity's living, thinking response to an enemy that believed resistance was impossible. They would be hope, forged in quantum circuits and adaptive neural networks. They would be humanity's promise that no matter the threat, innovation would always find a way. Lauren Chen stood before the massive holographic display, her fingers dancing across quantum communication interfaces that looked more like living art than technological equipment. The Psychological Warfare Division was humanity's most classified and sophisticated operation, a place where information became the most dangerous weapon in the universe. "Break their narrative," she muttered to her team of linguistic analysts, cognitive scientists, and quantum communication experts. The Kraxan believed in absolute information control, in a hierarchical system of communication that had remained unchanged for millennia. They were about to learn the true meaning of human unpredictability. The first phase of the psychological operation began with deliberate information leaks. Carefully constructed false intelligence was allowed to slip through intercepted communication channels. Each piece of information was a precision-crafted narrative designed to create maximum confusion. One report suggested massive human fleet movements near the Orion Nebula, when in reality, no such movement existed. Another communication hinted at diplomatic negotiations with a fictional alien coalition, complete with fabricated diplomatic transcripts so intricate that they would withstand the most rigorous alien intelligence analysis. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, the team's cognitive warfare specialist, explained the strategy. "We're not just spreading misinformation," he said, pointing to complex algorithmic projections. "We're creating an entire alternate reality that the Kraxan will be forced to respond to." Holographic technology took psychological warfare to unprecedented levels. The team developed projection systems that could create entire false battlefield environments. Kraxan long-range sensors would detect massive fleet deployments that didn't exist, ghost armadas that would consume vast resources to investigate. Quantum communication arrays were weaponized in ways the Kraxan could never anticipate. The team developed adaptive linguistic algorithms that could subtly manipulate communication frequencies. Intercepted Kraxan messages would be minutely altered, not enough to be immediately detectable, but sufficient to create incremental doubt and confusion. "We're going to make them question everything," Lauren explained during a classified briefing. "Every communication, every sensor reading, every piece of intelligence they believe they understand." The most sophisticated aspect of the psychological warfare was its predictive modeling. Advanced AI systems analyze centuries of Kraxan military communications, cultural databases, and historical conflict patterns. Each false narrative was precisely calibrated to trigger specific psychological responses. A series of communications suggested internal human political divisions, but each leaked document was constructed with such intricate detail that it would survive the most intense alien intelligence scrutiny. The documents contained intentional contradictions that would become apparent only after extensive analysis, creating a feedback loop of confusion. Holographic drone technologies allowed for unprecedented battlefield deception. Projection systems could create entire false fleet movements, complete with accurate sensor signatures and quantum communication patterns. A single human drone could make it appear as if an entire battle group was operating in a completely different sector of space. "We're weaponizing uncertainty," Dr. Rodriguez said. "The Kraxan operate on absolute certainty. We're going to show them the true power of human creativity." The team developed what they called cognitive dissonance protocols. Communication strategies designed to create maximum psychological strain in the Kraxan military hierarchy. Every intercepted message was a potential psychological weapon. Some communications suggested massive human technological breakthroughs that were just beyond the edge of believability. Others hinted at diplomatic arrangements that seemed simultaneously impossible and plausible. Each narrative was a precision-crafted psychological missile. Lauren understood the true nature of their work. This wasn't just about spreading misinformation. This was about fundamentally challenging the Kraxan's understanding of reality itself. Humanity's greatest weapon has always been our ability to imagine, she told her team. The Kraxan see the universe as a set of fixed rules. We see it as an ever-changing possibility. As the first phase of psychological operations began, the Kraxan military command found themselves drowning in a sea of contradictory information. Every sensor reading became a potential deception. Every communication, a possible trap. They were fighting an enemy that didn't just challenge their technology. An enemy that was dismantling their entire understanding of conflict itself. The first battle erupted in the silent darkness between star systems, a dance of technological marvel that would rewrite the understanding of interstellar conflict. Captain Elena Rodriguez gripped the command interface of the Phoenix-class vessel Defiance, watching as the quantum adaptive systems came alive around her. Kraxan battlecruisers emerged from quantum-fold spaces, their obsidian hulls gleaming with centuries of uncontested military superiority. They moved with mathematical precision, each ship a perfect extension of a collective military doctrine that had subjugated countless civilizations. They had no concept of what was coming. The Defiance didn't just respond to the incoming threat, it anticipated it. Adaptive hull systems began reconfiguring milliseconds before the first energy weapon was discharged. Quantum neural networks processed millions of potential engagement scenarios in the time it took a human to blink. Incoming primary weapon signature, the ship's cognitive interface announced. But it wasn't a warning. It was a calculation of defeat. The first Kraxan plasma lance struck the Defiance's hull and disappeared. The ship's nano-composite exterior absorbed the energy, redistributed it, transformed it. Where a traditional warship would have been vaporized, the human vessel simply absorbed the attack, its molecular structure shifting and adapting in real time. Captain Rodriguez watched as the ship's tactical display became a living, breathing ecosystem of potential responses. Each incoming weapon was not just a threat, it was an opportunity. The ship's distributed intelligence was learning, adapting, transforming with each millisecond of engagement. Swarm drone squadrons emerged from the Defiance's hull like a metallic cloud of living intelligence. Each drone was more than a weapon. It was a distributed neural network capable of independent tactical reasoning, while simultaneously functioning as a collective intelligence. They moved with a fluidity that defied traditional understanding of space combat. The Kraxan battlecruisers found themselves confronting an enemy that didn't follow any known rules of engagement. Weapon trajectories bent impossibly. Defensive systems seemed to predict and counter attacks before they were even initiated. Energy redirection at 97% efficiency, the ship's cognitive interface reported. It wasn't boasting. It was simply stating a mathematical fact. Lieutenant Michael Chen, the ship's tactical officer, watched in something approaching wonder. The battle wasn't just a conflict. It was a living demonstration of human innovation. Each moment was a new equation. Each threat was an opportunity for tactical evolution. The Kraxan communication networks began to show the first signs of strain. Their rigid military doctrine, which had served them through centuries of conquest, began to crack under the weight of an opponent that refused to follow any expected pattern of conflict. Quantum-entangled communication arrays allowed the Defiance to share tactical information instantaneously across vast distances. What should have been isolated engagements became a symphony of coordinated response. Each human ship was learning from every other ship's encounter, adapting in real time. Weapon systems defied conventional understanding. Hypervelocity railguns tracked and adjusted mid-flight with impossible precision. Energy projectors shifted frequency faster than incoming defensive systems could comprehend. The laws of physics seem to become suggestions rather than absolute rules. They're trying to analyze our response patterns, Lieutenant Chen observed. But we don't have response patterns. We have possibilities. The Kraxan commander watched in growing horror as human vessels seemed to dance between weapon strikes. Ships that should have been destroyed simply transformed. Weapon signatures that should have obliterated entire fleets were absorbed, redirected, made to disappear. This wasn't just a battle. This was a fundamental challenge to everything the Kraxan understood about warfare. As the engagement continued, the statistical improbability became clear. The human vessels weren't just surviving. They were demonstrating a level of adaptive intelligence that bordered on the supernatural. The Defiance's cognitive interface made a calculation that would have been impossible for any biological intelligence. It wasn't just defending. It was learning, evolving, transforming the very nature of the conflict with each passing moment. In the darkness between star systems, humanity was writing a new definition of warfare. And the Kraxan were beginning to understand that resistance was not just futile. It was impossible. The medical vessel Horizon hung in space like a beacon of hope, its adaptive hull a soft pearl against the darkness of the Proxima Centauri system. Special Operations Commander Eric Rodriguez studied the holographic display of the Kraxan containment zones, each pixel representing the human life waiting to be rescued. "We're not just extracting survivors," he told his team. "We're breaking every rule of engagement these aliens think they understand." The rescue operation was a symphony of technological marvel and human determination. Stealth ships equipped with advanced holographic technologies began their approach, their quantum-adaptive camouflage systems making them virtually invisible to Kraxan sensors. Each vessel carried specialized extraction units designed to penetrate the most secure alien containment facilities. Dr. Sarah Nakamura, the lead medical specialist, examined the preliminary scans of the colonist survivors. The Kraxan believed in clinical efficiency. Prisoners were maintained at minimal survival parameters. What they didn't understand was the human capacity for resilience. "Physiological and psychological trauma protocols are ready," she reported. The medical teams had developed regenerative technologies that defied conventional understanding of healing. Nanocellular reconstruction systems could repair physical damage at the molecular level. Quantum neural interfaces would help process the psychological trauma of alien captivity. The first extraction point was a massive containment complex housing nearly 3,000 survivors. Commander Rodriguez watched as holographic projection systems created elaborate deceptions. Entire sections of the facility would appear to be functioning normally while extraction teams moved with surgical precision. Kraxan guards found themselves confronting impossible scenarios. Communication systems became unreliable. Sensor readings contradicted each other. Holographic projections created entire false scenarios, entire sections of the facility appearing to be fully operational while rescue teams moved between the cracks of reality. "This isn't just a rescue," Rodriguez muttered. "This is a complete deconstruction of their security paradigm." The extraction teams were more than soldiers. They were specialized rescuers equipped with technologies that blurred the line between medical intervention and tactical rescue. Adaptive medical suits could instantly diagnose and begin treatment. Quantum communication arrays allowed for real-time medical coordination that made traditional triage look like primitive guesswork. Dr. Nakamura's team had developed what they called rapid rehabilitation protocols. Traditional rescue operations assumed survivors would require extended recovery. These protocols would begin healing, physical and psychological, the moment contact was made. One by one, the colonists were extracted. Each rescue was a precision operation that challenged everything the Kraxan understood about prisoner management. Entire families were moved without a single alarm being raised. Quantum adaptive camouflage systems made the extraction teams virtually invisible. The medical vessel Horizon became a marvel of human innovation. Regenerative chambers that could repair cellular damage at unprecedented speeds. Quantum neural interfaces that could help process extreme psychological trauma. Each survivor wasn't just being rescued. They were being given a complete path to recovery. We're showing them the difference between containment and care, Dr. Nakamura explained to her medical team. Commander Rodriguez watched as the rescue operations continued. Each extraction was a message. Humanity would not abandon its people. Humanity would not accept the clinical efficiency of alien captivity. Humanity would rescue. Humanity would heal. The Kraxan monitoring systems began to show increasing signs of confusion. Entire sections of their containment facilities seemed to be functioning normally, but populations were disappearing. Communication networks became unreliable. Sensor readings contradicted each other. By the time the Kraxan command understood what was happening, thousands of colonists had been extracted. The medical vessel Horizon moved through space, carrying not just survivors, but a powerful message. Humanity's capacity for technological innovation was matched only by its capacity for compassion. They were showing the universe that rescue was an art form. That hope could be engineered. That no one would be left behind. The quantum communication network hummed with a symphony of coordinated destruction. Admiral Rebecca Martinez watched as human forces began systematic dismantling of Kraxan forward bases, each attack a precision strike that defied conventional understanding of military engagement. "We're not just fighting a war," she told her strategic command team. "We're rewriting the entire concept of interstellar conflict." The human counteroffensive was unlike anything the Kraxan had ever encountered. Autonomous drone swarms emerged from seemingly impossible locations, their distributed neural networks functioning as a collective intelligence that could adapt faster than any centralized command structure could respond. Lieutenant Michael Chen coordinated the drone deployment from the central command vessel. Each swarm was more than a weapon system. It was a living, thinking entity that could analyze, predict, and counter enemy movements with mathematical precision. Entire Kraxan supply lines began to evaporate, not through brute force, but through surgical, almost invisible deconstruction. Quantum-locked defensive systems turned the Kraxan's own weapon technologies against them. Communication networks were systematically compromised, with false intelligence and tactical mirages creating maximum confusion. What had begun as a defensive action transformed into a strategic dismantling of the Kraxan Imperium's entire military infrastructure. The most sophisticated weapon was information itself. Each engagement revealed another layer of human innovation that the Kraxan simply could not comprehend. Their rigid military doctrine, which had served them through centuries of conquest, began to crumble under the weight of an opponent that refused to follow any expected pattern of conflict. Advanced AI systems analyzed every moment of engagement, developing tactical approaches that evolved faster than the Kraxan could adapt. Weapon systems shifted frequency and approach with impossible speed. Energy projectors could predict and counter defensive measures before they were even initiated. "They're trying to find a pattern," Lieutenant Chen observed. "But we don't have patterns. We have possibilities." The human strategy was fundamental destruction through systematic deconstruction. Instead of massive, direct confrontations, they targeted the very infrastructure of Kraxan military power. Communication networks were subtly destabilized. Supply lines were invisibly compromised. Entire forward bases found themselves cut off, their defensive capabilities slowly eroded by tactics that seemed to emerge from nowhere. Holographic technologies created entire false battlefield environments. Long-range sensors would detect massive fleet deployments that didn't exist, ghost armadas that would consume vast resources to investigate. The Kraxan found themselves fighting shadows, their most sophisticated tracking systems rendered useless. Admiral Martinez understood the true nature of their offensive. This wasn't about total destruction. This was about demonstrating the fundamental difference between human and Kraxan approaches to conflict. Adaptive hull technologies on human vessels meant that what should have been fatal strikes became moments of tactical opportunity. Ships that would have been destroyed in traditional warfare simply transformed, absorbed, redirected incoming energy. The laws of physics became suggestions rather than absolute rules. The psychological impact was as devastating as the physical assault. Kraxan military leaders watched in growing horror as their most sophisticated weapon systems were systematically neutralized. Entire fleet deployments would find their communication networks compromised, their weapon systems turning against themselves, their tactical advantages evaporating like morning mist. Commander Elena Rodriguez led a series of strikes that became legendary among human forces. Her tactical approach was less about direct confrontation and more about systematic deconstruction. Entire Kraxan forward bases would find themselves cut off, their defensive capabilities slowly eroded by tactics that seemed to emerge from nowhere. "We're fighting a different kind of war," she told her tactical team. "A war of possibilities rather than absolutes." Quantum entangled communication arrays allowed for instantaneous sharing of tactical information. What should have been isolated engagements became a symphony of coordinated response. Each human ship was learning from every other ship's encounter, adapting in real time with a speed that bordered on the supernatural. As the offensive continued, the statistical improbability became clear. The human forces weren't just surviving. They were demonstrating a level of adaptive intelligence that fundamentally challenged everything the Kraxan understood about warfare. The universe was watching a fundamental transformation of interstellar conflict. Humanity was rewriting the rules of engagement, and the Kraxan were beginning to understand that resistance was not just futile. It was impossible. The final confrontation was not a battle. It was a statement. The human fleet surrounded the Kraxan homeworld, a perfect sphere of technological precision that defied conventional understanding of military deployment. Admiral Rebecca Martinez stood on the bridge of the command vessel, her eyes reflecting the holographic displays that showed every microscopic detail of the alien planet below. "We're not here to destroy," she told her command team. "We're here to redefine." The Kraxan leadership watched in growing horror as human vessels demonstrated capabilities that shattered everything they understood about interstellar conflict. Quantum communication networks revealed the full extent of human strategic capabilities, not just military might, but a fundamental approach to existence that the Kraxan had never encountered. Diplomatic channels opened, but they were unlike any previous communication in galactic history. This was not a negotiation. This was a demonstration. Holographic projections began to appear across the Kraxan communication networks. Not threats, not demands, but a comprehensive display of human potential. Scenes of the rescued colonists being rehabilitated. Medical technologies that could repair cellular damage at unprecedented speeds. Adaptive technologies that transformed weakness into strength. The Kraxan's Supreme Chancellor, a being who had overseen centuries of interstellar conquest, found himself confronting an entirely new paradigm of existence. Dr. Elena Nakamura, leading the diplomatic communication team, crafted a message that was both an ultimatum and an invitation. Complete withdrawal from human-claimed territories, a comprehensive peace treaty that recognized human sovereignty. But more than that, an opportunity for mutual understanding. "We are not like the civilizations you have conquered," the message read. "We do not seek total destruction. We seek balance. We seek understanding." Each moment of the confrontation was a precision-crafted demonstration of human capabilities. Quantum adaptive ships moved with a fluidity that defied traditional understanding of space navigation. Defensive systems could predict and neutralize threats before they were even conceived. Communication networks operated on principles that the Kraxan scientific community could barely comprehend. The human fleet was not just a military force. It was a living, thinking entity that represented the collective potential of an entire species. Kraxan military analysts watched in growing confusion as human vessels seemed to operate outside known physical limitations. Weapon systems that should have been devastating were absorbed, redirected, transformed. Communication networks were simultaneously impenetrable and inviting. Admiral Martinez understood the true nature of the confrontation. This was not about conquest. This was about demonstrating a fundamentally different approach to existence. "We are offering you a choice," the diplomatic communication continued. "Withdraw. Recognize our sovereignty. or face a level of technological adaptation that will render your entire military infrastructure obsolete. The holographic displays began to show comprehensive simulations, not just potential military engagements, but entire scenarios of potential cooperation. Medical technologies that could revolutionize Kraxan healthcare. Adaptive communication systems that could bridge fundamental biological differences. The Kraxan Supreme Chancellor realized something profound. This was not a species seeking revenge. This was a species offering transformation. Scenes of the rescued human colonists played across communication networks, not as victims, but as survivors, as examples of human resilience. Medical technologies healing physical and psychological wounds. Adaptive rehabilitation systems that turned trauma into potential. Hours passed, then days. The human fleet maintained its perfect, non-threatening positioning around the Kraxan homeworld. No aggressive moves, no threats, just a living demonstration of potential. The choice became clear: withdrawal or obsolescence. When the Kraxan response finally came, it was not a surrender. It was an acknowledgement. Humanity had not just defended itself. Humanity had redefined the very nature of interstellar conflict. The universe would never be the same. And the Kraxan understood, with absolute clarity, that they had encountered a species unlike any they had ever known. A species that did not seek destruction. A species that sought understanding.